Elena Morgan wiped her brow as she finished the day's work at Mill Ridge Elementary School. At 34, she had been the school's SL interpreter for almost a decade, dedicated to the small but vibrant deaf community in their rural Minnesota town. The late September sun cast long shadows across the empty playground as she locked her classroom door. She was halfway to her car when she noticed movement by the utility shed. A small figure huddled there, shivering despite the mild evening. Elena approached cautiously. "Hello?" She called out and immediately switched to sign language, her hands flowing through the familiar motions. A girl no older than 11 jumped at Elena's approach. Her clothes were dirty, her dark hair tangled, and her eyes wide with fear. When Elena signed again, the girl's expression transformed from terror to desperate hope. The child's hands moved rapidly, almost frantically. "Help, please, they're looking for me." Elena knelt down to the girl's level. "Who's looking for you?" She signed. "Bad people. They hurt my parents. Now they want me." The girl's hands trembled as she signed, tears streaming down her face. Elena glanced around the empty schoolyard, the decision forming in her mind before she even consciously considered the options. "Come with me," she signed. "You'll be safe." As they drove away, Elena caught sight of an unmarked black SUV pulling into the school parking lot. The girl ducked down in the passenger seat, her small body curling into itself. Elena pressed the accelerator, her heart pounding against her. "Ribs, you did what?" Principal Harriman's voice crackled through Alana's phone the next morning. "Do you have any idea how serious this is?" Elena glanced at the sleeping girl on her couch. After a warm meal and a shower, the child who had given her name as Maya had finally collapsed from exhaustion. "I couldn't just leave her there, Tom," Elena whispered, moving to her kitchen to avoid waking Maya. She was terrified. "2 men came to the school this morning," Harriman continued. "Federal agents, Elena. They showed me badges. Said they're looking for a missing child, a material witness in an ongoing investigation." Elena's hand tightened around her phone. "Did they say what kind of investigation?" "No, but they were clear that harboring her could result in obstruction charges." The principal paused. "They're coming to your house next. They have your address from personnel files." Elena thanked him and hung up, her mind racing. She looked again at Maya, who had begun to stir. The girl's eyes opened, immediately alert and scanning for danger, a reaction no child should have. "Good morning," Elena signed. "Are you hungry?" Maya nodded cautiously. "Maya," Elena signed carefully. "People are looking for you. They say they're federal agents." Terror flashed across the girl's face. Her hands moved rapidly. "They're lying. My parents worked for the government. They saw something bad. Now they're dead, and those men want me because I saw them." Elena's blood ran cold. "Saw what, Maya?" The girl's hands formed the signs for meeting and money and weapons. Then, with precise detail that left no doubt about its authenticity, she described men in suits exchanging briefcases in a warehouse while her parents installed security systems. "They didn't know I was there," Maya signed. "Mom and Dad told me to hide when the men came back to our house. I hid in the crawl space. I saw everything through the vent." Elena felt sick as the implications became clear. "Where have you been since?" "Then, running," Maya signed simply. 2 weeks. "Found school because I knew someone might know sign." A sharp knock at the front door made them both freeze. "Ms. Morgan? Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to speak with you." Elena motioned for Maya to hide in the bedroom. The knock came again, more insistent. "Just a moment," Elena called, her mind racing through options. When she opened the door, 2 men in dark suits stood on her porch. The taller one held up a badge. "Agent Carver, FBI." This is Agent Miller. We're looking for a minor who went missing from protective custody. May I see your identification again? Elena asked, buying time as she scrutinized their badges. Agent Carver handed over his credentials. They looked authentic, but Maya's warning echoed in her mind. The shorter Agent Miller peered past her into the house. We have reason to believe you may have encountered this child, Carver said, showing her a photo of Maya. She's deaf and considered vulnerable. She witnessed a traumatic event and ran away before we could secure her in the foster system. Elena measured her words carefully. Why would she run from protection? Miller answered, his tone clipped. Trauma response. She doesn't understand we're trying to help her. As a mandatory reporter, Ms. Morgan, Carver added, you're legally obligated to inform us if you've seen her. Elena thought of the sleeping child in her house, of the detailed account of what she had witnessed, of the fear in her eyes that seemed too specific to be misplaced. Something didn't add up. I understand my obligations, Elena said slowly. But I also understand that authentic FBI badges have holographic seals that catch the light differently than yours do. Amen's expressions hardened simultaneously. Additionally, Elena continued, her heart hammering, I know the local FBI field office supervisor. Agent Daniels, my brother-in-law, works with him. One call would confirm if you're legitimate. Miller's hand moved slightly toward his jacket. Carver shot him a warning glance. We'll return with the proper documentation, Carver said coldly. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. As they walked back to their vehicle, Elena caught a glimpse of a shoulder holster beneath Miller's jacket. She closed this door, locked it, and leaned against it, trembling. Maya emerged from the bedroom, her question clear in her eyes. We need to leave, Elena signed. Now. As they packed essentials, Elena made 2 calls. The first was to her actual brother-in-law, a state police officer. The second was to Diane Chun, her deaf friend who ran the local community center for the hearing impaired. Diane, Elena said urgently, I need your help. And I need everyone you can reach in the community. Diane Chun's modest craftsman home doubled as an unofficial headquarters for Mill Ridge's deaf community. When Elena arrived with Maya, a dozen people were already gathered in the living room, hands flying in rapid conversation. They fell silent as the door opened. This is Maya, Elena signed to the group. She needs our protection. Diane stepped forward. At 52, she was a respected elder in their community, having fought for deaf rights since her college days at Gallaudet University. Born deaf to hearing parents, she had created in Mill Ridge what she never had growing up, a place where deaf people were understood and valued. Tell us everything, Diane signed. Elena explained the situation, while Maya huddled near the window, watching for any sign of the black SUV. When Elena finished, the room erupted in a flurry of signing so fast and overlapping that even Elena struggled to follow. Diane clapped her hands for attention. Maya is one of us, she signed definitively. We protect our own. James Fullerton, a burly carpenter who had lost his hearing in Iraq, signed. Those men will come back with weapons and false warrants. We need to get her somewhere safe. My brother-in-law is trying to verify if there's a legitimate investigation involving a deaf child. Elena signed. Until then, we can't trust anyone in law enforcement. An older man named Walter raised his hands. I have a cabin, 30 miles north. No address on file, no internet, no cell service. They wouldn't find you there. Elena translated this to Maya, whose eyes showed the first glimmer of hope since they'd met. But first, Diane signed with a sly smile. We need to make sure those men can't follow you. She turned to the group. I'm calling in the cavalry. Within an hour, messages had spread through text chains in private social media groups exclusively used by the deaf community and their allies. People began to arrive, first a trickle, then a steady stream. Grandmothers and teenagers. If this story of quiet loyalty is moving you, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to No Filter America. Your support helps us share more true stories about courage, compassion, and the power of standing by what's right. Exchange bought precious minutes. The new man spoke into a radio. House is being searched. No sign of the target yet. Elena felt a chill. These weren't law enforcement officers looking for a witness. They were hunters looking for prey. The search dragged on for 45 minutes. Elena watched the time carefully while appearing nervous but cooperative. James continued his painfully slow communication with Miller, who grew increasingly frustrated. Finally, Carver confronted Elena. "In the kitchen. Where is she?" "I don't know who you're talking about," Elena replied, maintaining eye contact. "You're making a serious mistake," he said, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "The people I work for don't tolerate interference. Are those people the FBI?" Elena asked innocently. "Because my brother-in-law just texted that they have no record of agents, Carver or Miller, working a case involving a deaf minor." Carver's expression didn't change, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. "We'll find her with or without you." As they prepared to leave, Elena received a text from Diane. "We are ready." Twilight was settling over Millridge as Elena drove toward her house after ensuring the false agents had truly departed. The past few hours had been a carefully choreographed dance, with Diane coordinating from her position at the community center while Elena kept the men occupied at her home. Now, as she turned onto her street, Elena gasped. People lined both sides of the road, dozens of them standing silent, solemn, and resolute. Some held candles that flickered in the growing darkness. Others clasped their hands in front of them. No one spoke. No one needed to. As Elena parked in her driveway, she recognized faces from across Millridge and neighboring towns. The local barista who had learned basic signs to serve deaf customers. The librarian who had advocated for ASL story times. Teachers from her school. Parents of deaf children. And at the core, the deaf community itself, standing proudest of all. She stepped out of her car, and Marjorie Baker, an elderly deaf woman who had been Millridge's first deaf resident decades ago, approached her. She pressed a note into Elena's hand. "They came for one of us. They found all of us." Tears welled in Elena's eyes as she looked down her street. The crowd had swelled over 100 people, and more were arriving every minute. Some held handmade signs with the ASL symbol for protect and community. Her phone buzzed with a text from Walter. Cabin secure. Package safe. Maya was safely hidden away. Another message arrived from Diane. Stay put. Let them see us. Elena didn't understand until headlights swept the street. The black SUV crawled past her house, slowing as the driver observed the gathered crowd. Elena caught a glimpse of Carver in the passenger seat, his face tight with controlled rage. The crowd turned as one to watch the vehicle. No one moved. No one shouted. But the message was unmistakable. We are watching you. After a tense moment, the SUV accelerated and disappeared around the corner. James appeared at Elena's side. Not just here, he signed with a grin. Diane contacted every deaf community within 100 miles. They're watching every road out of town, every motel. If those men try to stay in the area, we'll know. Elena marveled at the power of this silent network, invisible to most, but stronger than any official system these men could bring to bear. As night fell completely, someone started signing "This little light of mine," and others joined in, their hands illuminated by the glow of candles and cell phone flashlights. The silent song spread through the crowd until the entire street seemed to shimmer with moving hands. Elena's phone rang her brother-in-law, Kevin. When she answered, His voice was urgent. "Elena, listen carefully. I made some calls. Whatever's happening, it goes deep. The FBI does have a file on a deaf minor witness, but it's been classified above my clearance. And here's the thing someone's been accessing information about. You from law enforcement databases. Someone with high-level credentials. What does that mean?" Elena asked, watching the silent vigil continue around her house. "It means you stumbled into something big," Kevin replied. "And it means you've got powerful enemies now." As if to confirm his words, Elena spotted a news van turning onto her street, drawn by the unusual gathering. Whatever was happening had just become very public. "I need to go," she told Kevin. "But I need one more favor. Can you get me a name? Someone in the real FBI we can trust?" "I'll try," he promised. "Stay safe, Elena." As she hung up, Diane approached with a tablet. On the screen was a live stream from a local news station. The headline read, "Silent Protest in Millridge. Community Rallies Around Teacher." The battle for Maya's safety was just beginning, but Elena no longer stood alone against faceless men with false badges. She had an army, a silent army, that spoke volumes without saying a word. By morning, the story had gone viral. Footage of the silent gathering circulated on social media with captions explaining the community's stand against unidentified men impersonating federal agents. News vans lined Elena's street, and reporters attempted to piece together what was happening in the small Minnesota town. Elena sat in Diane's kitchen, watching the coverage while James kept watch outside. They had maintained shifts throughout the night, ensuring no one could approach the house unnoticed. "Any word from your brother-in-law?" Diane signed. Elena nodded, showing her phone. Kevin had texted an hour earlier with a named Special Agent Sarah Winters, Minneapolis FBI field office. "Can we trust her?" Diane asked. "Kevin says she specializes in internal corruption cases," Elena replied. "And she's learning ASL because her niece is deaf." Diane considered this, then nodded. "Call her, but don't reveal Maya's location." As Elena dialed, her phone chimed with a new message from Walter's wife at the cabin. "Package wants to show you something. Says it's important." After arranging to meet Agent Winters at a public library in the next county, Elena and James took back roads to avoid being followed. The cabin was nestled deep in the woods, accessible only by a rutted dirt path that wound through dense pine forest. Maya ran to Elena as they entered, throwing her arms around her waist. The girl looked better after a night of safety zone. Color had returned to her face, and she'd been given clean clothes. "I remembered something," Maya signed excitedly. "Mom gave me this before she told me to hide." She pulled a small USB drive from her pocket, attached to a necklace she'd been wearing beneath her shirt. She said if anything happened, I should give this to someone I trust. Elena felt the weight of the small device in her palm. "Do you know what's on it?" Maya shook her head. Just that it was important, that people would try to take it. Elena plugged the drive into Walter's ancient laptop. It contained a single encrypted file, but also a video message. The face of a woman appeared, Maya's mother, her resemblance to her daughter unmistakable. "If you're watching this," she signed and spoke simultaneously, "then David and I are probably dead. Maya, if this is you, find someone you trust and show them this message." She explained that she and her husband had been contracted to install security systems for what they believed was a legitimate government facility. Instead, they discovered it was being used for illegal weapons deals between corrupt officials and foreign buyers. "We gathered evidence," she continued. "It's all in the encrypted file. The password is Maya's birthday, followed by the name of her first pet." Maya quickly provided the combination, and the file opened to reveal documents, photos, and videos, all meticulously organized to show transactions, names, and dates. Elena recognized one face immediately, Agent Carver. "That's him," Maya signed, pointing at the screen. "He was there when they killed Mom and Dad." The Minneapolis Public Library was busy enough to provide anonymity, but quiet enough for private conversation. Elena sat at a corner table, pretending to read while scanning everyone who entered. James positioned himself near the entrance, pretending to browse magazines. Agent Sarah Winters arrived precisely at the agreed time. She was younger than Elena had expected, perhaps. Early 30s, with short dark hair and alert eyes that took in everything around her. She wore casual clothes rather than the stereotypical FBI. "Present? My team can meet you at your community center. Maya will never be alone, and everything will be recorded and witnessed." Elena considered the proposal. "Let me make some calls." By the time they left the library, the plan was set. The deaf community would bring Maya to the community center that evening. Agent Winters would arrive with her trusted team. They would take Maya's statement and the evidence, then move her to protective custody, but with Elena and Diane accompanying her at all times until the arrests were made. What no one anticipated was that Carver or Reed had his own sources. As Elena and James drove back toward Millridge, a black SUV appeared behind them, and another red blocking the rural highway. "James," Elena said urgently, "call Winters, now." News cameras captured the entire confrontation. What began as an attempted ambush on a rural road turned into Reed's worst nightmare. As his men surrounded Elena's car, vans and trucks appeared. From side roads and farm lanes, dozens of vehicles converged, filled with members of the deaf community and their allies, all alerted by James's emergency text before Reed's men confiscated their phones. Confused and outnumbered, Reed's team hesitated, just long enough for Agent Winters and her FBI tactical team to arrive. What followed was captured in footage that would be played on national news for weeks. Reed and his men forced surrender as a silent crowd of witnesses stood watch. 3 hours later, Elena sat with Maya in the community center, surrounded by the people who had risked everything to protect a child none of them had known before this week. Agent Winters approached them, visibly impressed. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted. "Your community just helped us break open a corruption case we've been building for years." "What happens now?" Maya signed, with Elena interpreting. "Reed and his associates are in custody," Winters replied. "The evidence your parents collected is damning. There will be more arrests higher up the chain." She knelt to Maya's eye level. "You're going to need to testify eventually, but not for months. Until then, you'll be under official protection." "Can Elena come with me?" Maya asked. Winters smiled. "Actually, I had a different idea." She looked at Elena. "Would you consider becoming Maya's foster parent? It would require special clearance, but it would keep her in the community that's already shown they'll move mountains to protect her." Elena translated the question to Maya, whose face lit up with hope. "I'd need to get certified as a foster parent." Elena signed to Maya. "There would be a lot of adjustments. But yes, I would be honored." Maya threw her arms around her, and the room erupted in applause, both audible and visual, hands waving in the air in the ASL equivalent. Outside, as evening fell on Millridge, something extraordinary was happening. People were arriving not just from nearby towns, but from across the state and beyond. Deaf people and allies, many who had followed the story online, came to stand in solidarity. By midnight, over 500 people surrounded the community center in a silent vigil of support. They brought food, supplies, and donations for Maya's future. They shared stories in sign language about their own experiences of exclusion and the power of community. They celebrated a victory that went beyond one child's rescue, a reminder that the voiceless could still speak volumes when they stood together. Inside, Maya fell asleep on a couch, emotionally exhausted, but truly safe for the first time in weeks. Elena sat beside her, watching over her while planning the adaptations she'd need to make to her home and life. Diane joined her, signing quietly. "You know this isn't over, right? The trial, the media, the adjustments, it's just beginning." Elena nodded. "But we're not alone," she signed, gesturing to the window where the candlelit crowd kept their vigil. "None of us is alone anymore." As dawn broke over Mill Ridge, the cameras captured one final iconic image. Maya stepping outside with Elena, facing the sunrise and the gathered crowd. The girl who had lost everything stood tall, her hands forming clear, confident signs to the community that had become her protectors. "Thank you for hearing me when I couldn't speak." 500 hands rose in response, signing back the same message: "We will always hear you." The sun climbed higher, illuminating a small town forever changed by the courage of one woman who refused to betray a deaf orphan, and the silent army that had risen in gratitude around them. And now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think this silent act of gratitude meant to her and to everyone watching? Share your ideas in the comments below. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe to No Filter America, and help us keep these unforgettable stories alive.